Good evening and welcome. I would like to call the September 3rd City of Issaquah Development Commission meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. As a reminder, we have a remote aspect to our meetings. This means both staff and members of the public may be participating in the meeting remotely via WebEx. For those attending remotely, if you have questions or issues, please send the host a chat message or email staff at emily.med@issaquahwa.gov. Excused absence for this meeting is Commissioner Sanford. Our first item of business is to take action on meeting minutes for August 6th, 2025. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes? Are there any corrections to the August 6th minutes provided in the agenda packet? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as submitted. Next, I would like to open the floor for any members of the public, in person or virtually, who would like to make a general comment, not about the Park Place Townhomes project, but on general topics. There will be an opportunity later in the meeting for those who would like to comment about the projects on tonight's agenda. Amanda, has anyone signed up to make general public comments?
No, I do not show any.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the public hearing. The order of operations for this hearing will be as follows. First, the purpose of the public hearing, followed by our appearance of fairness disclosures. Then we'll open the public hearing with a staff presentation, followed by an applicant presentation. Then open the floor for public comment. Opportunity for rebuttal by applicant, then staff. Close public hearing. Commission deliberation will then be followed by commission action, including motions, amendments, discussion, and vote. Then we will conclude the agenda items on the quasi-judicial permit. If for any reason the hearing cannot be completed this evening, it may be continued to a specific date. This is the formal public hearing for the proposed site development permit for Park Place Townhomes. The purpose of this hearing is to solicit relevant public comment and facilitate the review, discussion, and decision on the application by the Development Commission. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. Kristen, please proceed with our appearance of fairness disclosures.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Leeson, Planning Manager, and start with appearance of fairness. So, under the quasi-judicial decisions context, this requires proceedings to be fair in fact and appearance. Ex parte contacts are prohibited. Should a disinterested person, knowing the totality of a decision maker's personal interest in a matter, be reasonably justified in thinking that the partiality may exist, and decision makers who have personal interest, prejudgment of issues, or partiality are disqualified from the proceedings. So, for the commissioners, with regards to this proceeding, do you have a personal interest, financial or otherwise, in the outcome? Does your employer have an interest, financial or otherwise, in the outcome? Do you have any familial, social, or business relationships or connections with any of the parties or non-parties who have an interest in the outcome? Do you have any special knowledge about the substantive or the merits of this proceeding, which would or could cause you to prejudge the outcome? Will there be any prospective employment for you or your family as a result of this decision? Do you own or control property within 300 feet of the subject property? And have you had any ex parte communications regarding this project? Do you believe you can sit and hear this matter fairly and impartially, both as to the respective positions of the proponents and the opponents of this matter? Audience. Does anyone in the audience or in attendance wish to challenge the participation of any commissioner based on the appearance of fairness doctrine? No? See none.
Thank you. Now I open the public hearing at 6:35 PM. First, we'll proceed with the staff's presentation. Kristen, I'll need to swear you in. Please state your name and position with the city for the record.
Kristen Leeson, Planning Manager.
Do you swear by oath or affirmation that the testimony you are about to provide is true?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, so tonight we're talking about the Park Place Site Development Permit. It is located in Central Issaquah at 22011 Southeast 51st Street. Circled here, outlined in red right here. As I mentioned, it's in the Central Issaquah neighborhood. The zoning is mixed use Central Issaquah, and the land use designation is mixed use. The applicant is proposing 15 three-story buildings with 74 units, 148 parking spaces, and you'll see the asterisk, which I will talk about later. Frontage improvements along 220th and 51st, and primary access will be off of Southeast 51st Street onto different roads, interior roads and alleys. So the first thing we're going to talk about is that this actually requires affordable housing. I think it's one of the first that you all have seen. It requires affordable housing because it sits in the mixed-use Central Issaquah zone. So they are required to designate either 7.5% of their units at 80% AMI, and that's for sale or ownership units, or 5% of their units at 70% area median income. And the applicant has chosen to do the option 2, 5% at 70% AMI, which means 4 units will be provided at that affordability level. So site and building design, the buildings are oriented towards adjacent transportation facilities, sidewalks, streets, and trails. Each unit has its own entry, which is facing the sidewalk, and each entry has its own weather protection. No blank wall extends longer than 30 feet, and the design elements are repeated, and modulations and changes in materials and window patterns and colors are provided. Those are general standards. We'll get into Central Issaquah standards in a few minutes. Parking. They are allowed to provide 2 spaces per unit, which would be 148 spaces. That's the maximum. Minimum is 0.75 spaces per unit. They are proposing to do 148 per unit. They're also proposing 3 guest spaces, which totals 151 spaces. All spaces proposed are EV supply equipment provided or EVSE ready, and I don't know why I put that in there again. However, what we've stated is that each one has 2 units. They're proposing 2 for each unit. The 3 guest spaces would need to be removed because they're exceeding. So that is a condition on the site development permit. For motorcycle and scooter, they are required to provide 2 spaces for motorcycle/scooter, and they're proposing 4 spaces on the site. 2, I can't remember where. 2 are at the north end of the property and 2 are at the south end of the property. So landscaping and trees. The trees, they must retain 25% of the existing trees, and they're proposing to retain 28%. 266 total caliper inches are required, and they're proposing 300 caliper inches. 28% of the canopy is required to be maintained. That's 57,691 square feet. They're proposing 313,859 square feet proposed, and that's within a 20-year time frame what it will be once those trees have grown. This is through both the restoration and the landscape area as well. For landscaping, they must contain 30% of the native shrubs and ground covers. 10% of plants must attract pollinator species, and no more than 50% may be of one species. My note came off. I don't know where it went, but it said, we are not sure that they right now comply with the landscaping. But this is actually addressed when they submit their landscape permit, so we will confirm that it complies at that time. They definitely have the capacity to comply. Community and amenity spaces, they're required to provide 100 square feet of common outdoor amenity space per unit. So that would be 7,400 square feet for this site. They are required to provide 400 square feet of additional common amenity space, and they are required to provide 48 square feet of private outdoor amenity space per unit, which would be 3,552 square feet. As you can see, They are complying with the first two. They are exceeding the last one, the private outdoor amenity space. So they comply, and then they are also proposing on-site wayfinding. Lighting, there's not much to say right now. It's usually reviewed with construction and permitting. And the lighting is, they do have lighting proposed along Southeast 58th Street, Southeast 51st Street, and 220th Avenue Southeast, and throughout the development. They are in Zone 3, where lighting is generally desired for safety, security, and/or convenience. But this, again, will be reviewed with the construction permits. They are located, as I've mentioned several times, in central Issaquah, but they are located in traditional Issaquah, in which case you need to pick a style of architecture that is allowed in that area, and they have chosen craftsman style. Here are some of the standards that are required. They are required their massing. They have to have simple block-like forms that are laid out in a rectilinear or bar-shaped footprint. They are proposing simple block-like forms in a rectilinear layout. Pitched roofs need to emphasize horizontality that are capped by sloped overhanging roofs. They're proposing gabled roofs at 412 with eaves that project at least 18 inches out. They are not to exceed 4 floors and cannot span more than 100 feet in length. The buildings cannot. So all the buildings are 3 stories, so under 4 floors, and are less than 150 feet in length or width. The walls they must have 2 or 3 parts of natural materials applied with a horizontal emphasis. And they are proposing to have facades that include wood fascia, shake siding, board and batten siding, and stone veneer. So you'll notice I listed 4. So that was brought up earlier today in an email, and so you all may discuss that when it comes up. Also required doors. They have to have a combination of natural hardwood such as oak, maple, walnut, and decorative glass. They must complement the windows and other wall material. And they are proposing composite doors that look like wood, and they have wide wood casings on the outside, so staff believes that this meets the intent of the chapter. Windows, which were not discussed in the staff report, must be wood framed with divided lights on vertical emphasis, organized predominantly in groups of 2 or 3. So they do have divided windows that are framed in 4-inch to 6-inch trim, wood trim. They are predominantly in groups of 2 and 3, and there are some single windows, but those are acceptable. Roofs, the materials must not be dominant, they must not be a dominant characteristic. Colors must complement facade colors, must be constructed of shingles with subtle textures. They are proposing composite shingles, proposing colors similar to what is on the shutters and the doors. SEPA review was done. There was one comment that was received. It was from King County Parks. They stated that any access, because this property is adjacent to the East Lake Sammamish Trail, they said that any access or use of the trail for project purposes requires prior written authorization and potentially a special use permit from King County. And the trail corridor may not be used for construction, staging, or storage. And staff responded that this information has been forwarded to the applicant, and it is the responsibility of the applicant to obtain permits if they intend to use the trail at all. One more thing, they did get some deviations from street standards. So most of them are within the private roads and alleys, that they are being allowed to remove vertical curbs, remove sidewalk on one or both sides. These are typically in alleys and run right up against garages. They reduce the landscape width from 5 feet to 4 feet. There are some, it narrows some roadways to include a combination of asphalt and concrete ribbons, and they are proposing the crowned roadway that we would typically require is being revised to an inverted crown roadway. And then on public streets, no on-street parking is being required on 220th Avenue Southeast. That's the project. But your possible actions are to approve as proposed, approve with revised and or additional conditions, or deny it. And I have a motion if you need it. And that is all I have tonight.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission on the staff's presentation? Thank you. Now we'll proceed with the applicant's presentation. You want to come up here?
Let's get mine. Is that it?
I'll need to swear you in. Please state your name for the record.
Aaron Golden.
Do you swear by oath or affirmation that the testimony you are about to provide is true?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, my name is Aaron Golden. I work for KB Home, and I'd like to thank the commissioners for their time tonight, staff, for preparing the staff report, and for the review of the site development permit application over the last year. I'll keep this brief, but we're particularly excited about this project because it's a redevelopment of an existing office building site. So it's a site that's completely impervious area. It's an asphalt parking lot, an office building. We'd remove the office building, build 76 much-needed housing units in townhouses and carriages, and then take about over an acre of the site and turn it into the stream and wetland mitigation area. So again, it's asphalt parking lot and building that's over an acre, now becoming a wetland mitigation area. Towards the center of the site, I'm just going to cover a few things that I think are of note about the project. There's a sizable open space in the east center of the site. We view it as the living room of the project. I imagine community members gathering there. There's a tot lot, there's pavers, grass areas, picnic tables, what have you. But it's adjacent to this mitigation area and adjacent to this pathway, this soft surface pathway, which connects off-site. So it feels much larger to a resident, to their experience. There's also a smaller open space area in the south end of the site. Through the site and around the site, there are a lot of pedestrian walkways that take pedestrians out of the roadway travel lanes. And then lastly, Kristen mentioned the frontage improvements. On 51st and 220th, we'll be installing a protected bike lane and a wider new sidewalk. Our team is here and online, so we've got our architect and civil engineer here in person, and then we have our biologist and traffic engineer available remotely if there are questions. Thank you.
Any questions from the commission? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now we'll move to the public comment portion of the hearing. Ms. Jackson, has anyone signed up to comment on this topic?
No, they have not.
Okay, seeing no one in person, we will continue. Commissioners, are there any objections to closing the public hearing? Hearing no objections, I close the public hearing at 6:49 p.m. Now it's time to move into the deliberation portion of the meeting, but first we need to make a motion. Is there a motion on the item before the commission?
You want it up?
Page 27. Yeah, page 26.
I'm making it bigger. I'm getting there. There we go.
I move that the Development Commission approve the site development permit for Park Place Townhomes, SDP 2024-00012, as described and as evaluated in the staff report dated September 3rd, 2025, with exhibits A through M, subject to conditions therein and as amended tonight. Read the rest of it. And I move that the Development Commission direct Community Planning and Development Department to prepare findings of fact and conclusions for review and approval by the Development Commission Chairman, affirming the Development Commission's decision to approve the Park Place Townhomes Site Development Permit SDP 24-0001, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report dated September 3rd, 2025, with exhibits A through M, subject to conditions therein and as amended tonight.
Thanks. We'll start discussions. Mel?
Yeah, I guess the first question might be about the number of materials on the side of the building, and the way I read the requirements, they can't have more than 3, but there are 4 proposed. So I don't know if that's a condition we just change, or I guess if it's okay if I ask the applicant again if they have something to address that, what they might do with that.
Swear me in, or, okay. My name's Eric Coe. I work for KB Home, and I'm going to be the project architect on this project. So, on the materials, and I don't know if we have a picture we can put up, but there's three siding material. There's 3 materials on the side. We have a masonry base. We have horizontal siding, and the horizontal siding is depicted 2 different ways. One is 8-inch wide, and another one is 4-inch. We're kind of qualifying that as one material. And then the third material we have is the shake siding. So 3 materials. I know in the presentation, I think you brought up a fascia, but a fascia typically is just the 2x board that's part of the roof. So that's really not a material. So in our eyes, we're doing 3 materials, but we do have 2 different sizes of horizontal siding. So
Was there a board and batten mentioned?
Yeah, good point. The gable ends had a little extra detail just to give some interest because the buildings are tall, so just trying to do a little more different things up there. So there's some truss detail of just trim to make it look like a truss in some conditions, and then there is, I think, a gable end that has the board and batten detail as well.
I guess what I'm struggling with, when the code says must not have more than 3, have 4 with the board and batten. I'm not sure how we can condition around that. They look attractive, certainly, but trying to figure out how we.
And again, something very easy if that's, if you're really looking to simplify it and have one material, we can take the
Just have the
horizontal siding
all the
back
way
up
to the top.
and
Yeah.
remove the board and batten or some of that truss detailing
Yeah.
if you'd like. I mean, that's something.
Is it
we can
possible to
push back
pull
on.
up one of the elevation pictures?
Yeah.
Oh, did you pull? Oh, thank you. I have a color one too.
Okay, so this is obviously
Yeah.
exactly what you're pointing out, is in the large gable on the front elevation of this building type, we do introduce some board and batten.
Curious what other commissioners think.
So are we thinking that the horizontal siding, those are the same material, they're just different
There's
styles?
just one. The shake is 2, the masonry at the bottom is 3,
Board and batten
board
4.
and batten 4.
Kevin?
Well, I guess from an opinion perspective, I think it's a well-composed building. I think it achieves the intent of the guideline. It has a nice tripartite arrangement. I think it would almost do a disservice to it to eliminate the gable ends. I think that's an element you don't necessarily see on this type of building. So I think they've taken steps to make an attractive building. So I would support an amendment or a condition or a adjustment of standards. But again, that's an opinion. I'd be curious to hear what others think.
So I'll throw a couple comments in. So I agree that that it's a it looks like a well-composed building, elevations. And thinking about, the underlying intent of the code when you're talking about limiting the materials, you don't want to have it too busy. But what's done here is a fairly subtle amount of masonry at the base. So it's not like a full story, and very specific details up at the gables that I do think adds interest as you look at the roof. If you took the siding, the horizontal siding all the way up, I don't think it would look as good. And I think, honestly, probably even less craftsman-like as far as architectural style. So as far as the intent goes, I think since it's such a very modest amount of let's just call it accent material, I don't know that I have a big concern, but I do get the must part of the code because I read the same thing. It says must get no more than 3. So, but I think just because of the nature of the materials and how they're being applied, the limited application here, that I think it's falls within the bounds of
I was just going to say, I would agree with that. I mean, the gables are less than the area of the different siding. They're less than the area of the, it's been a long day, the things that close windows, the shutters on the windows. I mean, I think I'm very comfortable calling them like accents as opposed to siding.
I also would support an amendment to allow the current design.
Kristen, is it possible to pull up the code? And I agree with them. I think it looks very attractive. I just want to make sure what we do fits within what the code says.
18702, 060.
06.
While she's doing that, just a question. So we have the ability to have a code variance then? Or recommend a variance?
Well, the staff report recommends approval. I think we're just pointing out an inconsistency.
So yeah, so the language says a maximum of 3 of the following 4, and I think we have all 4. The tough thing is that, and actually if you scroll down a bit to non-compliant craftsman style wall materials, there's a picture a little bit further. So that picture has masonry, horizontal. I presume on the right side those are shingles, and then kind of a board and batten look at the top. And that says it's a non-compliant craftsman style wall materials. So I don't know how we the code says this, and here's the max you can do. I guess the question would be if you, on your plan, if you, since you've got shingles going up to that gable, if there was horizontal siding there instead of board and batten, could you still get the same distinguishing look of that gable end? Okay. Yeah. Okay. My concern is like the precedent we said, we haven't done this code very much since it's been enacted, and glad that somebody's working on these things. But if we kind of just say, well, we're going to say it doesn't apply for this, we set a great precedent. If it could be fixed by doing horizontal siding within that gable end.
Yeah, easily done.
Yes, I think we could go by the letter of the code, but I don't think that gives us a better outcome. And I do understand the precedent question that you're raising, but I would still argue that this is it's a specific design that we're responding to, and it's a modest amount that we're talking about as far as the fourth material type. So I don't know that it tips the scale over to running the horizontal siding all the way up into the gables, where I think it actually
Well, wouldn't
creates
be, if you could pull up the elevation again. So part of it is it wouldn't, the horizontal siding is to either side of the shingles. So it would have horizontal siding above the shingles as well as along the siding.
On the large gable.
Pardon?
On the large gable, the small one.
Oh, right. Sorry. So sorry, small gable.
right on all the end walls. You would have horizontal siding.
Or
All
the,
the- all
or
the
they
way
could
up.
use the wider shingles, the wider lap siding. Distinction.
I would encourage us to go to all shade siding in that
Mhm.
building.
Uh-huh.
Really simple, using materials, complicated, craftsman style. So if your desire is really to eliminate that fourth material, so you say, guidelines, we would encourage, from the architect's perspective, that trying to make the shade all the way up there.
Mhm.
Yeah. That way it's colored and colored and else.
Right.
How would you treat the end walls? Can we bring up a side elevation?
Same thing. I would take the horizontal siding right up into the gable end. One of the things that does is starts kind of giving you that perception of a larger mass. So it's nice when we can start creating ribbons and horizontal architecture for this style, for a craftsman style. It really wants to be linear. So what if we go with the one, the smaller siding again up in there, it'll start feeling a little taller, but it's kind of the nature of the animal.
Could the shingles go there?
You
Where-
could introduce the shingles on that elevation as well.
I guess we're designing, and I don't know if we should be doing that. The board and batten is the correct application of material in this case. So to start just pulling from a palette of materials and putting it up there in lieu of the board and batten takes it away from being a good craftsman-esque building. So I guess I'm not inclined to put a different material up there. The other application which the applicant is touching on is you either run the siding all the way up, call it a day, or you do the board and batten, but I wouldn't break it up and introduce a horizontal in the gable end. That's my, if we're going to be historically accurate or nod to the style. You wouldn't put horizontal in that gable end.
I defer to you on this one.
I'd like to note, though, that staff has recommended approval of the plan as submitted, which includes the 4. So if you're going to put a condition on it, the condition is going to be to remove or alter the board and batten up at the top. Just,
Well,
Or to have a maximum of 3 materials on the side, without a specification what has to be changed.
so we don't need to put an amendment? that it's-
if you want to leave it as is, no.
Okay.
I will just add that I agree that I'm not inclined to make any design requests or make suggestions that would make this design worse. And it seems that none of us have come up with one that's better. I mean, I think a good architect could, and maybe that's not most of us, but yeah, that's just my opinion on this one.
And I agree, I think it looks very attractive, great. I just have a problem when the code says you have to do this, and we're saying, no, you don't have to do that. So if somebody else comes in and says, I want to do something that's not in code, how do we say no, because code requires it?
Do you have an answer to that, Kristen or Emily?
No? You've caught a staff oversight, so this one's up to you.
Okay.
I have a great idea, because I can make a motion, if it doesn't get a second, it just dies. So I move to add condition 5, that there'll be a maximum of 3 materials used on the side of the buildings.
Is there a second for that? Hearing none.
All right.
Are there any other items for discussion?
I have a question, or I guess not really a question, a point to bring up about the parking spaces. Could we pull up the parking, or whatever landscape has the parking spaces on it and where they are? The external ones, the 3 that we're deciding to take out. They're near the common green area, right? And they're like dead end in those roads there?
Yes.
That's the proposed. So my point is, the intent behind the parking is ideally that more space is used for housing or green space or public area. And in this case, they fulfilled all of those parameters, and they have 3 spots that could be used for parking. And my guess, although I don't want to, I probably shouldn't assume anything, is that they're just not going to paint parking spaces in there when they could. But it's still going to be asphalt, it's still going to be there. So people will probably still park there. So I'm wondering, just on a practical matter, they fulfilled all of the obligations of putting enough housing there, putting enough public space there. I don't really have a problem with painting these spots as parking places. It's just my opinion.
Does staff have any input on that?
For this one we caught, and no, Commissioner Stanchak is right. They will probably remain there. But as far as us going out and enforcing parking spaces, if we see them out there, they will get a code violation because they have more than they're supposed to have.
And since we can go outside of code, I'm not going to let it go on. I do have one other question.
Oh, Michael.
That's okay. Oh, sorry.
Just a related question to parking. So there was an adjustment of standards that was approved related to 220th and eliminating the requirement for on-street parking. So, and now the staff condition says to eliminate 3 visitor parking. So where is there parking on 220? Will there be street parking on 220th, or where would guests park?
There is on-street parking on 51st. Yes.
Okay, so there is on, even after you've done your frontage improvements, bike lane, there will be on-street parking on 50?
Actually, we'll be adding the on-street parking. It doesn't exist at present.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mel?
I had a question about windows, and the way the code's written, windows are predominantly in pairs or triples, and it says that, in the discussion of it, says that the single windows shall not be the majority. And so I'm not sure if you have a full count for everything. I did look at the elevations for the building A fourplex, and I counted, if I got it right, 24 single, 24 multiple. So singles are not the majority, so it seemed to fit the code, because they were not the majority. So I don't know if you had if you had total numbers for all of the buildings, or see if we met that code.
We can obviously put that together for you if you'd like. I mean, our focus again was to try to adhere to the code as much as we could, get as much of the taller vertical windows, getting the mullions, divided lights, things like that, that kind of has that craftsman feel. So we wanted to get as much of that into the homes as possible. And then just when you're dealing with 3-story homes, you end up with a lot of wall planes that there's just no place to put a window, or it really doesn't make sense. Most people don't want to have a window in their garage for safety and security reasons, so we stay away from that. So we're trying to find closets, bathrooms, and some of these odd spaces that end up on the side every now and then, and you can get a window in there. So the 2030 or 2040 is kind of the anomaly of having that single window in anytime we could pair stuff up and not, kind of ruin a bed wall or something functional inside the home. That's kind of where we leaned our decision making on.
Okay, and I guess a question for staff, is it okay for staff to look at the full plan and before it's built to make sure there's not a majority of single windows?
We can revisit that again it'll be looked at again
Yeah.
during the building
Okay,
construction permitting process.
great. And again, I'm fine if it's equal, again, if we're just meeting code again, it'd be great. Thank you.
I had a question while we're on windows. The code, pesky code, says that the windows have to be double hung, single hung, or casement. It appears that the majority of these are horizontal sliders. And I guess first, is that true? And then second, how do we feel about that?
We have the windows, we tend to try and use 3050s or some kind of a single hung window. So as you're looking in the upper gable, those two windows that are molded together, those would be single hung windows side by side. So two individual windows molded together. The 2030 or 2040 windows right below that, still in all of where the shake siding is, those are single hung. So again, we kind of use as many single hungs as we can versus the sliders. We have better warranty with our, water infiltration, stuff like that. So on the very ground floor, to the left or right of the doors in that big mass with this shake siding, those there would be a slider. But again, playing with the mullions and things like that, we're going to try and give that appearance that it looks like it's got that verticality and it's a single hung. But that is a slider on that first floor.
Okay, well, as I zoom in though, I see that all the double ganged units are drawn as horizontal sliders, but that's just a drafting representation, and that's not actually
a graphic
true.
representation of the CAD block the guys would have put in.
Okay, so there are a few horizontal sliders.
Yes, sir.
Very few. But otherwise it's single hunks
Yes, sir.
in ganged pairs. All right, thank you.
Any other questions or deliberations?
I have a
John?
question on access. My basic assumption is there's fire access on these interior roads. And you've laid it out so the trucks can get in. My question really is in move-in day, when a family moves in with a semi, how are they going to come off of 51st and then truck things in, or I don't know if they can make that turn into the interior, or actually, how do they get out?
The main entrance to the project is off of 51st, as you noted, and the engineering department and the fire marshal did an auto turn. We did an auto turn analysis that met the fire code, so I'm assuming a fire truck, a large fire truck can make it, and a moving truck could. I don't know for certain. I don't know about moving trucks. That is the single entry. The other entry to the south end, my cursor is showing. Oh, I see, sorry. At the south end of the site, it's marked as tract F. That's an emergency access, it'll be gated. So there's no regular use by residents, but just emergency vehicles.
And then getting back to the existing structure that's the office building,
Yes,
has there been any surveys of the building in order to determine if there's any hazardous materials in the building that need to be handled carefully or differently?
well, we did a phase 1 study, environmental study of the site, including a review of the building. I didn't find anything hazardous.
So no testing was required then?
No, but there will be testing required prior to demolition. So as part of the city's permitting process, to pull a demolition permit, there's an asbestos survey that's required to be done.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I have a question since you're up there. Maybe you know the answer to this, if it's okay. Composite doors, do they have a wood interior?
We defer to Eric.
No, composite door is usually, it's stamped in a wood grain on the inside and the outside, so it has that same.
It's a solid core door that's stamped, it's not hollow core.
It's actually a filled, it's going to be a stamped door, and it's going to have a filled material.
Okay, that's
That'll
not,
give
that's
you
not
the high
wood.
insulation value.
Okay. Right, I guess one of my questions is that it says the doors must be a combination of natural hardwood, such as oak, maple, walnut, and decorative glass. And to me, it doesn't sound like hardwood. It sounds like it's going to look like hardwood, but not meet that code. But so, I'm sure they'll look very attractive. I don't know what commissioners think, change there or not.
Yeah. Is that an aesthetic code or a environmental, like what is the reason behind that?
And I would point out too, the non-compliant would be hollow metal or hollow wood, which these would not be. All glass or door groupings are greater than 2. So composite doors are not shown as non-compliant.
Just a thought. So but the code doesn't specify whether it can be painted, or it just says it's a material type or wood type. So I think, to me, it's about the authenticity of meeting the standard, and that is, is it presenting itself as essentially a decorative wood door? I mean, there's a lot of different door types out there that are composite, but obviously what we need to accomplish is the intent of the code, and that is high quality door that is appears as a wood entry door, but again, it doesn't specify that it needs to be of a natural tone.
The code says that the intent is that doors are used as an opportunity for material embellishment to emphasize a warm, welcoming building entrance. And staff felt this met the intent.
I would agree with Commissioner Brennan. It's a high-quality door. If it wasn't, I would feel otherwise, but I think it does meet the intent of the code. I think that's the aesthetic code, the architectural overlay styles, but if you're looking at energy efficiency too and just durability, especially in a structure like this, I think, it's got to look good, but it's got to be durable, You start to get into life cycle issues where things start to degrade with heavy use. So I think it meets the intent of the code.
Thanks. Any other items? Mel? No, Michael.
Just a question about the selection of colors, since we have some elevations or renderings here that are kind of muted, and we don't have a color board or materials board. Can you talk a little bit about what the color palette that you're thinking of applying here? Can you describe what this is going to look like other than somewhat muted gray?
Yeah, obviously muted gray is not our preferred color, but typically on the multifamily, we'll try and do, 3 or 4 color schemes so that we can, for different buildings. And so your guidelines want earth tones, so you can always fall back on what Green and Green did in Pasadena with the greens, and used 2 or 3 different greens and light tans. So our colors right now, this is more of a tan building with, grays and, a little more of a brown tone in some of those. And they, obviously on color screens, they don't come out well, but the intent is to have three colors on a building, and then we get to have a 4th color that would be a highlight for the guidelines, and that would be introduced in the roof. And then we would probably, our intent is then to introduce that on like the shutters to get some pop. So you would end up with a color scheme on each of these buildings that would be 2 to 3 colors and a highlight. And then you would have 3 different color schemes, 4 different color schemes in the community to get a little variation. All of those kind of working together. So we're going to be using the tans, the greens, and just those earth tones that kind of work up here. So hopefully that answers your question the best I could.
For staff, what additional review do the colors go through?
They just get reviewed at the building stage.
Okay, we usually do see specific colors.
Well, can I ask you a question, just more of a point of order? It said in the narrative that architectural review was being handled administratively, but we've really brought it forth here tonight. And then the elevations weren't provided in the initial packet. Is this not in our purview necessary?
No, so the elevations are typically included in the plan set, and I didn't realize until after it went out that they weren't included in the plan set, which is why they were sent separately. The intent. Really, your review and your recommendation is geared toward the materials, the modulation, the roof lines, the access, everything that's, the form and function, not necessarily the paint colors, but those will be reviewed.
Okay, thank you.
And as I understand, in staff review, you would be doing it in accordance with the color section of standards.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other items? Should we conclude deliberation? With the deliberation concluded, it is time for the commission to take action on the item before us. There were no amendments made, so can you pull up the main motion again? Oh, I guess it's not been amended, so I think we can just go for it. All in favor of the main motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. The motion is approved unanimously. This concludes the Park Place Townhome Site Development Permit. A notice of decision will be issued by staff within 7 days.
Madam Chair, I can make a comment. I very much appreciate the project you're doing here, and I think, as you heard from the commissioners, it's we like the way it looks and project and everything, and appreciate your putting up with our desire to try to fit within the code, because it's a newer code that's been written for this, so appreciate your patience. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. See, staff, any city council updates?
No council updates tonight.
Okay, and any other business we should be aware of?
Yes. So, Emily, do you want to go for it?
I met you guys on multiple times, but Emily Medina, I'm a senior planner now. I got promoted last month. So with that promotion, thank you. With that promotion, I'll be taking over as DC liaison. So Kristen has been providing me with some training, and we'll be there to hold my hand the first couple times, but I'll be taking over as your liaison and setting up meetings before upcoming, numerous upcoming meetings that we have going, and I'll be here to support.
Which brings us to our next item. In the calendar, it says at the next meeting is supposed to be October 1st. I've had it in my head. Richard and I had a very fun conversation today via email. I've had it in my head it was supposed to be October 8th, so I had left it as October 8th, and then it said it's supposed to be October 1st. As it turns out, Yom Kippur is October 1st and 2nd, and we are not allowed to hold public meetings on various cultural celebrations. So we do need to reschedule it, and so we need to find out if you all can make a quorum on October 8th. So if you could just raise your hands and let us know if you can be here on that date, that would be very helpful.
Can I ask what is the topic of that one?
That is going to be 60 Newport Way, Townhomes. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 of you. Okay, so we have a quorum. Okay, then our next meeting will be scheduled for October 8th. And after that, probably the next meeting, we will also be deciding on dates for, potentially for the high school, when that comes through. All right, thank you.
Thank you, staff.
Do we know how many dates we might have for that?
There are several comments have come in. It is definitely 2, maybe 3. No, the location will stay here. There is nothing else scheduled that night. Good question.
Do you recall when we talked about the high school, how many meetings
We had 3 last time. 3 with Planning Policy Commission, 3 with Development Commission.
All right, thank you, staff. There being no further business before the commission, I adjourn the meeting at 7:28 p.m.